We head out on the video chat now to, I'm not sure if I call this Central Canada or Eastern Canada. I think you're in Ontario, right, Ken?
Right in Toronto, yeah. It depends what part of the country you're from. Because isn't middle of Canada Winnipeg, technically?
Well,
No?
yeah. I mean, it seems like Ontario people call Ontario Central Canada, but I call Ontario Eastern Canada, and then they're like, what do you call, the Atlantic part? Well, isn't it Atlantic Canada?
That'd be down east.
Down east. Okay, east and down east.
Right.
Well, that's...
where I'm from, Nova Scotia, think Toronto's out west. I'm like, no. It's west, but it's not.
Yeah, you're from Pictou, Nova Scotia, right?
Nailed it, Darren.
Did I say it right?
Pictou.
Pictou. I knew it was either Pictou or Pictou, Nova Scotia. I've never been out to Atlantic Canada, but it's on my list. Why should somebody travel to Pictou, Nova Scotia?
It is the birthplace of New Scotland. The first ever Scottish immigrant to Canada landed in Pictou on the ship Hector in 1776, I want to say. And there's a recreation of the ship there, and we like to drink the odd pop. It's a fun place. And lobster, right? Everybody likes lobster.
Absolutely. Who doesn't?
Ken, whereabouts is that? Where is Pictou?
What's that?
Whereabouts is that? I've been to Nova Scotia scouting all the four CIS schools, but whereabouts is it?
So it's you've driven to Antigonish, then to go to St.
Absolutely.
So
yeah.
5 west of Antigonish. So
okay, yeah.
Hour and a half northeast of Halifax, right across from Prince Edward Island. If you've ever taken the ferry from Nova Scotia to PEI, the ferry goes from Pictou.
Okay, is there a Tim Hortons there?
Oh yeah, we had two.
I think two. Yeah, I think I stopped there for a Tim Hortons on the way to Antigonish.
There you go.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
How does Pictou become known for its pizza though? Apparently, there's pretty good pizza there, I'm told.
Yeah, I think just because it's unique, it's different. It's got a brown sauce, and we put our toppings under the cheese. But you got to let it cool for 10 minutes before you bite in, or you're going to burn the roof of your mouth. Ivanka Osmak learned that at the Pictou.
What's the brown sauce? I'm curious about the brown sauce.
No one knows. It's like the caramel secret. So
really?
It's hot, spicy, and there was a guy in front of us in the line. He's like, I never had this before. I said, Ivanka, watch, he's going to burn the roof of his mouth. And he torched the roof of his mouth. So
jeez.
That's incredible. You know what? It probably came from somebody's grandma's grandma that just only had those certain ingredients. It's the roast, right? Yeah. The end of the roast, you cut the end of the roast off and it's in the pan. So, they asked the daughter, well, why do you do that? Well, that's because what mom did. And mom said, and you go to mom and say, why do you do that? Well, that's what my mom did, your grandmother. And you go to the grandmother and why do you cut the end of the roast off? Because we only had a small pan. We had to cut the roast off.
Yeah.
And they thought that was the family secret. So maybe that's why they have brown sauce.
Everything basically happens out of necessity, right? Like so the pan was, that's why you cut her off. So that makes sense.
Look, as the host of Sportsnet Central out in Toronto, is a day like last Saturday night, is that something you guys get excited about? Is that like a Christmas for you guys when you get an emergency backup goaltender that plays and a great story that you guys can go and have a lot of fun with? Because, man, when we watch the show, you guys are having fun.
Yeah, that was Christmas, wasn't it? Sorry, I'm just looking for a phone charger here, guys. Yeah, that was absolutely Christmas, the way it all came together. I mean, what a fantastic story. I love the people that, this can't happen again. Well, why not? It was a great story. The guy lived his dream. If you can't get excited about that, you're not a sports fan. I always say, I work about 200 nights a year. I always say I get paid for about 10 of them, when stuff goes down. Mm-hmm. So a big second or something happens during the show. That's one of those nights where you're getting paid because stuff's happening. You got to get it on the fly. Kyle Bukauskas, credit to him. He's the ringside reporter on Hockey Night in Canada. He doesn't know who David Ayres is when all this stuff starts going down. And, man, he went to work, and right away he got us, a little background on the guy. Hasn't played since the Allen Cup in 2014 and, 42 years old. It was a cool story. And, for me, we kind of all lived through him that night. Who wouldn't want that one shot in the NHL? Mm-hmm. And he got it perfectly. Win or lose, he handled it perfectly. He was so classy the whole night.
Yeah, it's just so cool. I love following the business and the ins and outs and, watching what people's habits are and where things are going. And it's interesting in your position because we know that we're not breaking any news on our shows, right? I mean, everybody's got it on their cell phones now. They know what's happened. But you guys continue to find a way to be entertaining and be kind of must-see programming. What's that like on a daily basis? Because it used to be such a responsibility to deliver the scores and deliver the news, and it was the only place that you could get it. But now, as we evolve, how are you guys, staying relevant and able to continue to capture the attention of Canadian sports fans?
Thanks, Darren. I think that's important. For me and Ivanka, we don't rehearse anything. We don't talk about what we're going to talk about on the air literally until we talk about it. So if we're going to add and they tell us in our ear, okay, you're coming back, you're going to chat Oilers Flames. I'll say to her, you start or I start. Or she'll say to me, you start or I start. And I'll start. Or she'll say, Ken, you start. Or vice versa. And we just go. And for our show, we're literally happening right when the games end. So if you see me read the highlights, I guess it would be, say, 8 o'clock your time. The game just ended. I'm not seeing the highlights until you see the highlights at home. And my script is probably just printed off. So the reaction you're getting from me, if I'm freaking out at a save or a fight or a hit, genuine reaction. So it's organic, I guess, is the word that you'd use nowadays. So back in my day, you'd say keeping it real. So it's just a genuine reaction. You're seeing my enthusiasm or my lack of enthusiasm, my disdain or my joy at something. And that's just my honest reaction. So I think a sports highlight show at its best, it's the equivalent of me just sitting down with you watching the highlights. You're seeing it at the same time as I'm seeing them. So I'm not going to sit there going, oh, Alfred Ovechkin scored his second goal of the season. He's now 194 behind Wayne. That's not how I do it, right? So, wow, he scored his 700 goal. Cool. And I'm crossing my fingers going, oh, my God, I'll break Wayne's record. But I'm sadly realizing he's probably going to. I have to cope with that. I'm a diehard guy. So for me, it's just, and Ivanka as well, the way we do it, it is what it is. You get what you get. If you saw us prepare for the show, you'd probably think, oh my God, they don't do anything. They just go on the air and just kind of react. And I mean, we have our cheat notes. I have my stats on the side, but we just kind of go on the air and react. And that's kind of it.
Is it like the show, Sportsnet? Did you watch that with Josh Charles?
Yeah, I have that on DVD.
So do I.
Oh, sweet. Okay, you're as geeky as I am about
Pedersen
there. Cool. It's like the show that we don't have our own offices. I always like that the anchors each had their own office. Yeah. I do not have an office. Yeah.
And you're not running you're not running the highlight packs on a VHS to the VTR machine.
Not running on it's all computers now, and I'm not nearly as handsome as the two anchors they had on Sportsnet.
Craig?
Yeah, you guys do a great job. I love watching. You got great chemistry. Now, does Ivanka get mad at you when you call her by her last name all the time?
No. I call all my last name. So some viewers, you're disrespectful. Disrespect your. But you know what? In 2020, one thing I've learned with social media and in being in broadcasting for 20 plus years, you can't make everybody happy.
Yeah.
And nowadays, the people who make happy have easy access to tell you.
Yeah.
So you just, in the wise words of Audio Slave, be yourself is all that you can do. So if people don't like me calling her back, what can you do? There's not a buddy I have that I call by his first name.
Well, you guys got great chemistry on the show. It's fantastic.
Hey, she can't stand me, by the way.
Ken Reid is a host of Sportsnet Central, but also a 4-time author, right? I got that right, 4 times. The hockey card book.
Hold on. Yeah, the 2 hockey card books. Oh, 5-time now.
5-time. Okay. 5-time author. Got to get that right. You got you don't got much time on your hands writing books, hosting the show. I gave up on collecting hockey cards when I was a kid. I got the 25-year anniversary set for one of my birthdays.
Nice.
And I picked out all the great cards. I had a Gretzky card and Lemieux, and I had the old guys. I had the Rocket. I had probably,
oh my goodness,
a dozen really good cards in this 25 anniversary set. So I said, you know what? I'm always a kid who plays with this. I lose things. I'm going to wreck them. So I put them in a box, a wooden box. I went out in the backyard. I dug a hole and I buried them. And I'm like, I'm going to come back when I'm 20 or 30 and I'm going to pull these out. They're going to be worth thousands of dollars. So
you made
wait
that.
What's that?
You made a time capsule with your hockey cards?
Basically, in a wooden box put underground. Now, couldn't wait that long. So about a year later, maybe 2, I go back in the yard where I had, marked it out and I dug it up. And of course, I'm, 12 years old. I didn't put it in plastic, right?
No.
So they're all destroyed because it's a wooden box that had rotted and just a disaster.
Feel over there. Because dryness is key for hockey and baseball cards. You want a nice dry area.
Yeah, I didn't know. I didn't tell anybody, right? So my dad couldn't help me out. My mom couldn't help me. I didn't tell anybody I was doing it. But what's the most interesting card that you've come across in your time? Because you like unique sports cards.
Yeah, it's funny because when I was a kid, I was really into it, right? And then I left for college and I just discovered golf, right? So then your hockey and baseball cards kind of go to the wayside. Then you get married and you have, realize you only have so much man time and you kind of maybe nostalgia the whole thing, and I found a lot of people who collected in the boom like myself are going back to it now that they're in their 40s or late 20s like myself. And for me, I mean, I've come across a lot of cool things. One of the coolest thing I ever saw was the T206 Honus Wagner. I saw one of those at the National in Chicago. Geeked up, got my picture with it, all that stuff. I got a Rocket Richard rookie that I'm pretty proud of. It's beat up, but I enjoy it. Of course, I have my Gretzky rookie, but what I love about cards is kind of each one has its own little story if you really take the time to look at it. There's some great cards out there right now, and for me, it's a trip down memory lane. It's putting hockey history right in your hand. So I enjoy them all, but I really like the ones from the 50s and the 60s, the old haircut, the old style.
Yeah,
they're just little art. And if you were a kid, let's say somewhere in Saskatchewan in 1961, maybe the only look you'd get at a guy like, say, I don't know, Boom Boom Jeffrey was on his hockey card, right?
Yeah.
Maybe you didn't watch TV and you only heard him on the radio, or he was in a magazine, maybe, if you're lucky enough to get a hockey magazine. So those cards were a link between fans and the NHL. I hope they still are at a certain level today.
That we do here with the Facebook show. We got a wall of comments that comes in. Clark, can you pull up the comment from Brett asking him about the pizza? He was asking you about the Wheel. He says there was always a great place called the Wheel, and he wants to know if it's still around or if you know of it.
Well, I know of the Wheel. Correct. Wheel is in Antigonish.
Yes, that's what he put on there. Yeah, that's right.
The Wheel is not Pictou County pizza. So the Wheel is Antigonish pizza. But I'll tell you this. I worked in Calgary from 99 to 2003. And the Flames are on one night. I'm down at the game, and once in a while I'd watch from the Zamboni entrance. So I'm sitting down there by the Zamboni entrance and watching the game. And then the ice crew comes off. And the guy's like, "Hey, Ken, I'm so-and-so." He gave me his name. He's like, "I'm from Antigonish." I was like, "Oh, cool, man." He goes, "You ever hear of the Wheel?" I'm like, "Of course I heard of the Wheel, man. I've been to the Wheel." He's like, "My dad owns the Wheel." There you go. Small world. And
Wow.
Oh, man. We all moved out west. So, yeah, I know the Wheel well.
That's cool. Really cool. So I hope that answers your question there, Brett, on the Facebook wall. And your latest book came out, just before Christmas time, Eddie Shack and Hockey's Most Entertaining Stories. What would be, give me one that would tease me into into buying the book.
Eddie's the only former top hockey prospect I know who lost his driver's license at the age of 13 and a half. Now, not only did he lose his 13 and a half, he had his driver's license at 13 and a half. He lost it for drag racing. He got his roadster up to 87 miles an hour. Got pulled over. So he lost his license at 13 and a half, but it has a positive ending. He got it back when he was 14. So that's the life Eddie Shack.
How about that?
Wow. That's incredible. Eddie Shack, hockey's, yeah. It's so incredible.
Yeah, for getting ready to go, oh man, do I go major, junior? Do I go NCAA? I got the Phantom draft coming up in a few years. I got to eat this nutrition. I have to do this. Drinking cocktails and racing his car around at 13.
Bantam draft. He's thinking about those things at 13 and a half, but he loses his driver's license. That's really cool, Ken.
Yeah, it is.
Hockey's Most Entertaining Stories. You can find it at Chapters Indigo. Ken, really great getting to know you here this morning, and hopefully this is the first of many.
Boys, I'd like to come back anytime. This was fun. And and thanks for the kind words about Sportsnet Central, and I hope everybody keeps watching. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Appreciate that.
You're watching Rod Pedersen On Demand. For more of The Rod Pedersen Show, visit rodpedersen.com or follow Rod Pedersen on social media.